to go into the facility, not looking for legal compliance. That's the job of the state, but looking for how we would feel if a member of our family was detained at this facility. I think you'll see that echoed in the report and in Dr. Gongora's comments. I'm very thankful. Also, this is an opportunity for you all, members of the public and other agency folks who are here to ask questions and clarifications, because this report that you'll see attached and you'll see discussed today is a draft. This is a draft that was compiled from commissioners' notes by POC staff, and then the commissioners will vote on it on June 11th to decide whether they accept it as written or want to make changes before it becomes the official report that's submitted to the state and the court and the board. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gongora, who needs no introduction, but I'll introduce her anyway. Sarah is the project director for programs and services, has been with the Probation Oversight Commission since almost its beginning, and takes Janae, I see that Commissioner Shipp is here under attendees, if we can promote him. Thank you. Sarah takes this work very seriously, and I think you'll hear that in the way that she does it. I could not do this job without her, and I'm so thankful. And then we have these 4 awesome commissioners, 3 of whom conducted the inspection, and 1 of whom is our fearless chair. And so we will have the opportunity after Sarah goes through the PowerPoint to hear from them. And then we will welcome you all to participate. You just use the little raise your hand function by pressing the little hand icon at the bottom if you're here on WebEx. Or if you're calling in, you dial *3 on your phone, and that will raise your hand for us. If you're watching this on YouTube, and we are recording this and putting it on YouTube, you can't participate on YouTube. You have to hop over onto the WebEx. And I think maybe we can put in the comments of the YouTube the WebEx link if folks want to join us on WebEx. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah, and thank you all for being here. Actually, let's have the commissioners quickly introduce themselves, just so that you know who you're looking at, and then Sarah can take it away. Chair Canales, you want to start?
Hi, thank you so much, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Chair Canales, and I'm here with the POC.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
Shay Jackson here. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Commissioner Shipp?
Good afternoon, everybody. Commissioner Shipp here. Just happy to be here.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Kakani?
Hi, Melinda Kakani, she, her, hers.
All right, go ahead, Sarah. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all so much. Thanks to our commissioners for being here, and thanks to the public for joining us. I am so glad to see how many people have logged in. First of all, before we get started, we do have a PowerPoint. We can put that up now. And while we're waiting to get started, I just want to take the moment to say happy Pride, everybody. It's June, and we're going to be talking about girls and gender expansive youth in some detail today and what services are looking like at Campus Kilpatrick for the annual inspection that we did. If we can go to the next slide. Okay, so I just like to jump right into business, but I will give you all a little bit of background about our inspections and the methods. So the Probation Oversight Commission does formal annual inspections of each of probation's detention facilities once a year. And like Wendy said, we do compile reports. We send those to the BSCC, and I will say that's Board of State and Community Corrections. This year, Campus Kilpatrick was our first annual inspection of the year. We did this inspection on Wednesday, April 1st. We were there from a whopping 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. We had 3 of our commissioners, 3 of the ones that are joining us today, and 3 staff members there. So between the 6 of us, we did a combined total of over 40 hours in this facility on that day doing interviews and observations. So when we do these inspections, the data that we gather is really a snapshot of the day, right? We spend such a long day at the facility to really grasp what it's like to spend a day in the life, both of the young people that are detained there and for the people who work there. We really want to find out, what are the conditions? What do the relationships look like? How do people work together? How does the day flow or not? Right? So part of that process is doing a ton of observations. And of course, We do interviews with everybody we can, anybody that'll talk with us. We are really chatting up. We talk to young people. We're spending a lot of time with probation leadership. We talk about like planning for the future and changes that have happened since last inspections. We talk with the officers at the facilities and we hear their perspectives of what it's like to be there. And of course, we interview co-located county partners, including Department of Mental Health clinician and leadership, juvenile court health services. We talk to Los Angeles County Office of Education, both teachers and leadership. And so from that day of observations and interviews, after we did the inspection, we sent a feedback email to probation, letting them know some of our more urgent concerns. And then we worked on compiling the report, as Wendy mentioned. We then sent that report to probation, and we're so grateful. You know, we send the report ahead of these sorts of meetings so that probation has an opportunity to correct any errors, any data they feel is erroneous, or any information. And we were so grateful to be able to integrate some of that feedback that they did provide. And then we firmed up the report, sent it back to probation, and we will be presenting this town hall. And next week at our live monthly POC meeting, commissioners will vote on whether to amend or approve it. Okay. And in doing that, probation did submit a formal response to the report, and that is published on our POC website alongside the report, just for future reference and for anyone that wants to check it out. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, I wanted to provide a little bit of history for folks that may be joining us and haven't been around for all of the changes that have gone on at Kilpatrick over the last 9 years or so. And so I just wanted to provide some background. So in 2017, Kilpatrick was reopened as the launch site of the LA model, right? It was built, you'll see through some of the pictures that we'll be showing in this little slideshow. It's a very open concept camp. There aren't rooms, there is no like a cool down rooms or a hope center. There aren't individual rooms. It's like very open. There aren't a ton of like gates in the facility. It's just like an open campus. And so then in September of 2023, the facility pivoted from being a camp into being a secure youth treatment step-down facility. And it functioned that way for a while, a couple of years. We've had a couple of inspections there under that function. And then in April 2025, probation, as part of their depopulation plan for Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, stated some intent to make Kilpatrick the sole facility to house girls and gender expansive youth. So the transition for that and the first movement of girls and gender expansive youth from Los Padrinos started in November 2025. That transition of other youth from Dorothy Kirby Center came later throughout December and January, and then all the movements were complete as of January 2026. So at the current time, there are 4 distinct populations housed at Kilpatrick. That is a juvenile hall, it's a camp, it is a locked placement, and we'll talk more about that specifically, how placement was at Dorothy Kirby Center, so now everything is kind of moved over to Kilpatrick, and we're also using it as a secure youth treatment facility. I hope that was clear enough. Let's go to the next slide. If not, folks, I really welcome questions at the end. Absolutely. Any questions you have about anything I've said here, always happy to answer. So I'm going to jump right into the findings. And I just want to encourage people, if you have time to look at the report, please do. There's a lot of detail in there, and we're really going to go at a light level today. So first finding, once the pilot site for the LA model, efforts to implement and practice the LA model have been effectively abandoned by probation. I'm going to give you some history on this, and then I'm going to talk about why we came to this finding. So the LA model was a multi-million-dollar investment. The construction of Campus Kilpatrick alone, I believe, was 47 million. So a major investment in creating Campus Kilpatrick to launch a trauma-informed, youth-centered, teamwork-heavy approach to supervision and delivery of services to youth disposition to the site. The county contracted a model jurisdiction to come and cross-train everybody on site. It then piloted, like I said, in 2017. But since then, there's been turnover. There have been multiple changes in leadership, and there's been an expansion of staffing with the higher population. So as has been seen across other inspections, like we find that the practice of the LA model has really fallen on the shoulders of individual officers to continue practice of that, right? We have not been seeing like a major support from leadership, and not only at the facility, but at like an executive leadership level to really practice those principles. And so when we were in the inspection and we asked about intent to continue the model, there was vague mention of like a hope for the future to train the newer officers coming to the site, but there was really no mention of like training or cross-training the other departments or intent to re-implement sort of interagency meeting processes that had been in place before that were supporting youth, coordinating interventions, coordinating services that were known to be like a part of the model. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about what that looked like in the day of the inspection and how I saw that really show up as a change from previous years, is that there seemed to be a lot of uncoordinated information. And in the past, I think we saw more of like a united front in coordinating interventions for young people between some of the co-located departments, and really like the safety and structure that came along with that was a noticeable change from previous inspections. All right, for the next little differentiation. Oh, sorry, still the last slide. Yeah, little differentiation of services for youth with different dispositions and needs. So I'd like to start off first by saying that young people at different times during a detention, they may need really different things, right? And also they're individuals who from the jump may need some different things. So that's why courts have the prerogative to give youth different dispositions according to the reports they receive and what they believe the young people are needing. So saying that, let me highlight what was differentiated. The main point that we received through interviews throughout the day is that the positive behavior model for young people was different depending on where they were in their detention process. So people in the juvenile hall cottages were on a behavioral management program called BMP, and all of the post-disposition youth, so those youth in camp, the youth assigned to placement, and the youth assigned to secure youth treatment facility are using the developmental stage system, or DSS, which is part of DOJ settlement. Both of those systems are level-based, and they encourage youth to run their program to achieve higher levels and receive better like incentives. The DSS does have a journaling component. However, there are no treatment and counselor DPOs on site at Campus Kilpatrick to do that journaling with kids, as is available at Barry J. Nydorf and Dorothy Kirby Center. So also in a similar vein, all youth had access to kind of the same DMH services, right? They all have access to psychiatry, they all have access to clinical, which is fine. But we did hear over the day that the facility itself wasn't a great fit for certain youth, some youth with complex care needs in particular. We heard about trauma-related sleep disruptions, and we are particularly concerned for those youth disposition to placement. because those youth were really meant to be in a dedicated mental health and complex care facility. Okay, let's now go to the next. Thank you. Okay, so we found that there was insufficient identification of and lack of specialized services for transgender and gender expansive youth. So we did leave the inspection concerned about the methods. The facility was using a really narrow definition, like a very narrow lens to consider gender expansiveness. They do have a contracted consultant meant to provide like a plan for the facility, but that person didn't seem to be like a regular on-site presence. And, you know, with the plan for the last year, for the facility to be like the dedicated site for serving gender expansive youth and be specialized in gender responsiveness, it made us pretty concerned about the lack of preparation 5 months into operation, right? Because if you think about it, you started saying there in November and we came on April 1st. So these issues were definitely part of our recommendations made to the department in like that follow-up email about our concerns to please seek consultation with other youth serving departments and to seek the expertise of like other county experts like the LGBTQ plus commission about how to make improvements leaning toward more inclusion and more support for our young people. Okay, staffing issues. So staffing woes were really a big issue throughout the day in what was reported to us and how operations had been going, because all operations had been strained. And apparently, you know, we hear a lot about staff call out, but that appeared to not be the issue that was reported. What was reported to us is that short staffing was related to not enough officers being assigned to CVK upon its November reopening to manage those 4 different populations being housed there. Because it's not like, you know, they're separated by gates. No, it's an open facility. And so the way that probation was managing to keep youth separated was that officers were having to absorb that and really trying to provide that separation, a lot of coordination going on between movement, a lot of coordination going on for recreation time and other programming. So the officers also talked a lot about extended days without breaks. And for those of you who recall, you know, at Kilpatrick, they use the 56-hour work week. And so those are already 16-hour days. So if you're extending the day up to 20 hours, that's very challenging to remain, you know, centered and patient and rested throughout the day to really be interacting and de-escalating young people as officers do. And so officers talked about not having breaks, having to supervise youth alone, and even issues with not having enough coverage to be relieved to use the restroom when they needed to. It was reported that, you know, this did cause issues with following schedules and keeping programming on schedule and also causing disruption to clinical services. But I will say that leadership, of course, was well aware of the issue, and they informed us on the day of the inspection that 30 officers were going to start in the days following the inspection. And so because there is the 56-hour work week, it was going to be like there are 3 shifts across the week, and there would be 10 officers assigned to each of those shifts in order to bring a better balance and some relief. And then finally, for grievances, we did see a number of issues with grievances. We saw grievances that were not addressed for 3 or more days after being submitted. We saw grievance forms that were lacking follow-up information that seemed really critical to us, like whether the concern was forwarded to a Prison Rape Elimination Act coordinator, a PREA coordinator, and we were also concerned that many grievances had handwritten responses that were fairly illegible. And so we didn't know what the resolution to some of those were in order to evaluate them. We also learned that an electric grievance management system that had previously been in use by probation had been reinstated at the facility. And we do talk a lot about this in the report, but it seemed like there was some trouble during the inspection with like familiarity with the system, how to print those grievances, and just how to access them in a general way. Let's go to the next slide. So again, I want to thank everybody for being here and listening. And I really want to encourage people to look at the report, but I'd also now like to open it up to our commissioners. And I think we can just do like a popcorn system, or if y'all want to raise your hand, or whoever wants to go first, absolutely open to it. Just thank you, everybody.
While folks are deciding who's going to talk first, can I just say I would like to reiterate what Sarah said in my extraordinary gratitude to the young people who are willing to talk to us. We couldn't do these inspections without them. They're brave and thoughtful and caring, both about themselves and their peers and the staff, and also the staff who are willing to talk to us, even to point out concerns. These inspections are valid and helpful because of the contributions of the people who are willing to let us interview them. So my strong gratitude goes out to both of those folks, and also members of partner agencies, Department of Mental Health, LACO, Juvenile Court Health Services. Those folks also contribute a lot to the understanding of the situations in these reports.
I'm happy to kick us off and look forward to hearing public comment. I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity to read probation's response until right before joining, because there are a lot of things in there that I would love to address specifically, especially around the fact that this is an open dorm setting. That doesn't really work for every young person. And I think the department's response was that this state-of-the-art facility was built in consultation with young people, with a design firm, with a really kind of unique intention. But it was also a single population, right? It was a post-disposition kind of camp male group of young folks that we're talking about. And I really do just want to lift up what Sarah mentioned on the onset, and that is that like we're now working with 4 different populations, and what that means for young people, for the largest group who are pre-dispo, right? So they could be there for 7 days, they could be there for 6 months, or they could be there for years fighting their transfer hearing. But in a pretty intense kind of like vulnerable moment, kind of not knowing what the future is going to look like. And then you have the other, camp population, again, of girls and gender expansive youth, not boys, who maybe this is best suited for. But then again, now you have a third population that this building was not contemplated for, which was the placement folks, right? And those young people who would have otherwise been at Dorothy Kirby Center, who would have otherwise had access to treatment and counseling DPOs, who would have otherwise had access to space and their own space that maybe is really important for this specific population. And then you have the SYTF population who's going to be at a facility for a much longer time and who probably also value their privacy and their space in a different way. And so, yes, while an open dorm setting is lovely for some young folks, I thought it was really short-sighted of the department to respond in that way and to kind of talk about the fact that advocates and folks calling for reform have referred to some of the individual rooms that young folks are locked in as cages. And I firmly believe that like any door that locks behind you that you don't control, like whether and when you can open it, is a cage. But the idea that you can walk into a room, and even if you choose not to lock the door, but to be able to have your own space, that feels really important for a lot of the young folks who are at this facility. Just in terms of being able to like sleep well at night and have a place to decompress. There were two other pieces that I just wanted to mention. One was in the probation report back, they shared that those of us who went on the inspection were provided with, or someone had shared with us, an 8-module kind of course related, I think, to working with girls and gender expansive youth. I can say that nothing was shared with me. The only thing that management at that facility shared with me, and I think the few of us who were sitting in the room, is that they were working with the consultant, and that consultant would not be working with staff, but was primarily just working with the folks up top. So while, maybe other folks on this call can speak to that 8-module course that they bore witness to, but I certainly did not bear witness to anything concrete related to working with girls and gender expansive youth at Kilpatrick. And then the last piece I just wanted to lift up was the piece around the 16-hour work week for the folks who are tuning in. Not 16-hour, I'm sorry, 56-hour work week, but 16-hour days. And just like to hear what that sounds like, that means your shift starts at 6 a.m. and you are working until 10 p.m. And I get that that's what the union kind of negotiated and that's what they wanted. And so that worked for them. And that as part of this contract and as part of this negotiating, you may be subjected to a 20-hour workday, which means you're starting your shift at 6 a.m. and you are not finishing until 2 a.m. 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. And while that might happen on occasion, I think it's really important to acknowledge that when we were there, this was the norm. This wasn't an anomaly. This is what every single staff member I spoke to said that they were experiencing. Working 20 hours, having something like 4 hours to decompress, close your eyes, reset, whatever it is, and then showing back up at 6 a.m. And I noticed that in the probation response, they shared some images, but they didn't share an image of the sleeping quarters that some of the staff were subjected to. And it's unfortunate that they didn't, because I think that the public should be able to see where staff are expected to reset, rest, center. I don't know what it is, because I can't imagine having to work 16 hours, let alone 20 hours, and decompress in what's being offered to at least some of those staff, only to them to have to come back and do it again for another 20 hours. So that's my monologue, and I will pass it to whoever wanted to jump in.
Hi, thank you for that, Commissioner Kakani, because as you mentioned in the inspection where you all you didn't see the training or any examples of it. I went on a separate day and spent numerous hours. I spent the whole entire day. I did draft up a report for our director, for Wendy and for Sarah, but I was also not provided anything. And I also had a lot of concerns about the sleeping quarters, because of course we know the staff need to be well rested and have their sleep, but not only that they could not even leave the girls and gender expansive youth unattended to use the restroom and everything. And one thing I did notice when I went up to the sleeping quarters that are in the facility, not the trailers, was there was not even enough space at all. There was bags everywhere. And then when I went out to the trailers, just how small and confined they were. And also how far away the showers and restrooms were. So those are some issues that should definitely I saw when I went to the facilities.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in really quickly as well. Like, for me, I agree. Those trailers were very small, and even speaking to some of the staff, how they spoke about some of the taller staff not being able to sleep on the trailers and having the option to sleep on the floor. And so when we talk about staff who work in 16 hours and taller staff sleeping on the floor, as you all know, that can cause all types of sort of issues for people's backs. Maybe somebody has underlying conditions, or it's just not conducive for them to go inside and try to work with our young people. Another thing that I saw that, for me at least, is huge to uphold is that, you know, for our girls and gender expansive youth population, different units had different things. And you know, small things can become a need for girls and gender expansive youth, like a blow dryer or the right hair products, right? And some units had those correct products and others didn't because of whatever reason, the difference in population. But those needs played a role in the behavior of some of the youth or just how they felt about the facility. Some specifically for post-dispo youth, they were having an easier time because they had everything they need. They had blow dryers and things to do their hair or different things. But for those pre-dispo youth, they didn't have much of this stuff, and so coming in and maybe that's, as you all know, 5 months or 6 months, whatever amount of time that they're there, they are going without these needs, right? For when it was a young male campus, you didn't necessarily need these same needs. Um, but now this is something that becomes a necessity and also on how somebody feels comfortable living somewhere for 6 to 7 months. The last thing I'll probably bring up is for the intake unit. One of the things that I saw is that intake unit was starting to be used as a isolation dorm kind of a bit for youth who are having a bit of a more troubling time inside the facility or adjusting to the facility. Um, and uh, so some youth can be isolated by themselves, and they would what's the word? They would not be getting the same amount of programming that youth in other facilities are getting. They would be there by themselves, and so I think that's super concerning. Just because young people need programming, and programming that fits them and makes them want to change or mold them into, or develop them into youth leaders, and so. I think that isolation piece is super important to name, and there needs to be some more work on how we to help our young people um, get adjusted to this new campus. Although it's beautiful, there's still work needed to be done to make it fit our girls and gender expansive youth.
Thank you for that, Tyreek. I'm happy to jump in. I am one of the commissioners that participated in that inspection recently and share some of the concerns that are in the report and some that the commissioners share as well. Although I didn't visit the sleeping quarters, my inspections are typically very interview heavy. So I spend a lot of time in the cottages talking to the staff and to the youth. And at that time, some of the challenges that were shared, very consistent with you guys are with what you're already kind of aware of, the safety concerns, the open dorm setting, and things like that are just kind of repetitive. But I witnessed some positive interactions and some positive sort of things. And the programming, for example, with the animation program, they were very excited and proud of what they had produced. And I really hoped that we could see a lot more of those things. And I hope there is some intention to replicate, if not that idea, a more program that's maybe more culturally competent and responsive in that way to actually keep the young people engaged. They really value their day room time. And so really thoughtfully crafting programming around that so they can have their time to themselves to do hair and do all the other fun stuff, but also be able to participate in programming that is going to be more enriching. I think there's an importance, it's really important to be able to strike a balance between those things. I don't have my actual notes from the inspection, so I'm trying to go top of mind with some of the themes and some of the issues that I remembered from my visit. We witnessed the sweet 16 of one of the girls there. That was a really sweet moment for me and it was kind of nostalgic as well. I had my sweet 16 at Central Juvenile Hall and they threw a big party for me and I remember what that meant for me. And so I was really happy to see that moment was being created for one of the other young ladies there. I questioned though, because favoritism came up so frequently in my interviews, if that was the standard for girls that were having a birthday while they were detained in the facilities, or if that would be a tease to other girls who didn't have similar experiences on their birthday. Although the Sweet 16 is a very big deal, it's a milestone birthday, and maybe that was more of an anomaly, but it was a special moment, nevertheless. I left feeling that um, Kilpatrick had a positive effect on me. I'm not going to say that it wasn't a good inspection. I will say that that has to do, or probably has a lot to do with the fact that the facility has a bit of a halo effect, right? Just because it's very beautiful, modern, updated, and at times that can sort of deter you from some of the internal issues that the facility is experiencing. And when you do some of the deep diving, you do see that it's pretty much LP at a different facility. It's probably actually exacerbated by the fact that you have these populations compounded within one facility, and then you start to experience all of these operational issues as a result of that. And so I found that the girls are going to be adaptable, no matter what, and that's something that's really nice to see, because whether they're at LP or whether they're at Kilpatrick, they're going to figure out how to adapt to being in, individual rooms or being in open settings. I was happy to hear that they were very vocal about the concerns of the open setting, and they weren't wooed by the fact that just because the facility was more attractive, that it was a better experience for them overall. And they were very vocal about the fact that they didn't feel safe, as you guys have heard today, about the fact that they don't have enough privacy. I know that probation seemed to think that because we have criticized the carceral setting, that somehow this open setting is is a resolution to that, and that there is no balance between how to create home-like environments that also create the privacy that they need. And that's something that I'm hoping that we can discuss further, because we can't have privacy compromised for these home-like settings. You know what I mean? And also, it's so broad. It's like, how are we addressing the core issues? I don't know if that's actually happening. The bedwetting, for example, was an issue that was specific to the open setting, and girls that might have that experience as a trauma response did not feel like they could, take care of their hygiene and kind of like recover from those incidents without humiliation and bullying, so to speak. So that's one way to sort of highlight why privacy is such a big issue when they're in those open settings. I also took a look at probation's response shortly before this meeting started, and kind of wanted to speak to some of the points that were made. As a commission, we objectively collect and report the information that's shared with us. I have a special appreciation for the anecdotal stuff. I like to hear the stories. We do our very best to report and relay the information that is given to us. So it was very disappointing to see the probation department's defensiveness when it came to our report, and almost denying or discrediting the experiences of the staff, the facility staff, the young people, and the POC staff, and the commission itself, because it's almost saying that in some ways we didn't have the credibility. I don't know, maybe that was a far-fetched kind of thing, but in my opinion, it felt like they were defending certain things and discrediting other things on the other hand. I'm sorry, I'm just roughly reviewing some of my notes here to cover some of my own feedback. Oh, so I know that we're talking about issues, and we're talking about things that need to be corrected at the facilities, and we've offered feedback or recommendations on how to do that. My hope was that we could look at the inspection more so as an opportunity loss, and how we could introduce much more maybe substantive programs and services to the girls to maybe enhance their experience. It's not always about looking at the issues themselves, as much as it's looking like this is a real opportunity for us to, if not mirror what the step down program was, to exceed that, right? We already know that the girls and gender expansive youth, it's a specialized, it's a unique high need population. And the opportunity really here is to offer them something unique and something special to match the population, and not seeing that done despite the investment in contracts and consultants and all these things, where we're really not seeing the return on that investment or any really material benefit from it. I was just disappointed to see that, they're not talking more about how they're delivering on that front. I'll stop blabbing for a moment, but those are my rough notes on my inspection.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your comments. I didn't want to be monologuing the whole time, so I definitely cut some of my details short, and you all really covered it. Oh, Commissioner or Chair Canales, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you so much. I didn't hear it mentioned, but one thing that I wanted to also highlight was in the intake, it wasn't, it was just, I was shown everything. And one thing that I saw, they made sure to have all the numbers up of everything, of, you know, who to contact and everything. And Director Evans was also showing me, they have this garage where they're making sure that none of the girls or gender expansive youth are they don't come out of the van until they're secured inside. So this way, like, nobody could get pictures and things like that. They were telling me that they're having this process of security and privacy, and I thought that that was a good thing, you know, pointing out that people wouldn't be able to like get glimpses of the youth and snap pictures as they're being brought in or being transported to court back and forth.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Do we, oh, yeah.
Just one thing that I think was important to lift up. I recall some time ago where the chief had shared that his intention with moving the girls and gender expansive youth to like one facility was to create programming that was specifically tailored to their needs. And while programming will never be like the be all end all, right? Like there's so many supports in the community that are probably like more valuable and more necessary for young folks to stay safe. I wanted to lift up the fact that I didn't see that. I didn't see anything that was like necessarily tailored specifically to the needs of the young folks who are inside there, whether it was, you know, a young person who was sexually exploited, whether it was a young person who was experiencing like significant like foster care experience, whether it was a young person who didn't have a placement. And so, you know, they become this like hard to place young person and end up spending far too long inside a carceral facility. So anyway, just wanted to name that like there really was nothing that was like specifically tailored to the needs of these different, not just populations, but also like the different young folks who were inside Kilpatrick.
Commissioner Ship?
Yeah, really quickly before, I also do want to just give a shout out to the on the ground staff. You know, there are a lot of probation officers who were in the field at one point and really volunteered to come work this 56-hour work week and who come and stay inside those dorms and work hard, right? Like I think you know, we got to give them a shout out. And one of the big things that I think they need is communication. I think they don't hear enough about what's going on the ground, and they don't get enough information. And so I think one of the big things that I always wanted to highlight whenever we do these inspections is that, you know, people who are the closest to these young people should know everything and have all this information and be able to translate it to these young people. So it's a communication and not just say do these things because the chief said so or because someone said so, but because they have a reason for it and why it works and something that they can believe in.
Absolutely. I couldn't co-sign that more. The creation of a rapport-based supervision versus a compliance-based supervision and how that sort of culture can echo through from what officers are feeling to the way that interactions with young people go. 100%. Okay, well, if we're ready to, we can transition to doing public comment. We're happy to hear your comments about the report, questions for me or commissioners or any of us about any of this process, and specifically about Kilpatrick.
Sarah, if I could just say, this is not a Probation Oversight Commission meeting. It's not governed by the Brown Act. We don't have a quorum of commissioners here. We only have 4. and there has to be 5 for a quorum. We aren't taking any action, and so we're not going to do public comment in the same way that we do at our meetings. For those of you who have joined town halls before, you'll be familiar with this, but this can be a much more discussion related process where you're welcome to ask questions. Please do not give a 7-minute speech. I might cut you off, but there's not going to be a timer, and we really want to encourage you to participate and ask and contribute so that we can add your thoughts into our report. So Greg has already done this, and I'll call on him first, but all you need to do is click the little hand function at the bottom of your screen, and I'll call on you, and you're welcome to share your thoughts and ask your questions. And if you're calling in, dial *3 and we can do that. And if you missed my explanation at the beginning, if you're watching on YouTube, you can't participate. You have to come and join on WebEx. The link to do that or to call in is on our website at poc.lacounty.gov under meetings and town halls. So Greg, we'll unmute you and you can get started.
Oh, thank you very much, Gwendolyn. And my name is Greg Johnson. I'm a senior program associate at the Department of Arts and Culture. And we have a large number of program services that are being delivered at Campus Kilpatrick. That turns out to be just checked 43 services per week. And that is in a number of different art forms. We also have a workforce program there. I want to just, first of all, thank you all for the report. I'm very happy that you've addressed the issues, but I also would like to suggest that we have a more robust conversation about the programming that Arts and Culture is providing there and the positive effects that we're having. And I believe that Commissioner Jackson did call out the animation program as being very successful, but there are other successful programs. And I also want to give props to Ms. Salim and Ms. Welder at CBK, who have been very, very helpful to Arts and Culture in ongoing coordination and support for the programming that we do. And it's not an easy task, and they're very prompt and they're very professional in all of their ways of working with us. And we appreciate the opportunity to provide programming and to continue to plan for expanded programming and other kinds of programming that youth are asking for, and that we would appreciate the opportunity to do that in coordination with the POC and any other interested parties that share our concern for having a very, very expanded and successful set of programming opportunities for youth that work both for the arts and for culture and for employment readiness and all of the other kinds of things that arts can do. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak today. I can easily be reached at arts.lacounty.gov, G. Johnson. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg. And I don't actually remember whether it made it into the inspection, but Commissioner Jackson and I also watched are you going to say the same thing, Shay? We watched this very well choreographed dance put on by a couple of the girls in one of the units that, I mean, it was clearly hours of work that had gone into choreographing this dance. And, you know, the contribution of arts to healing is so obvious, and it was beautiful to watch them express that. So sorry, Shay, if you wanted to share more about that.
Yeah, I actually forgot about that for a moment, but I mean, it's the way that you feel when you're witnessing them being so excited about something, right? They have invested their time and it was so well done and they were so excited, so proud. It's like, how can we recreate that as much as possible? That's how I left feeling. Like, we know that while they're in the facility, it can't always be that, but we want to create as many opportunities for that as possible. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so
I do have a question for Greg,
yeah,
though. I have
sure.
a question for Greg. What other programs are you aware of? I mean, I think he mentioned hearing about programs that they're interested in, other programs they're interested in. Can he share others if he has them?
We unmuted you again, Greg, if you want to respond to that.
Yes, I think that's a more detailed kind of discussion, because I think the youth in general do want to have those kinds of programs, like you mentioned, that allow for self-expression and creativity in particular. And that also, I think the idea of what has been offered to the SYTF youth in terms of stipends and having them ready for a step down that goes into a community a setting where they can have internships and employment and other kinds of opportunities immediately upon release is I think very effective. It's been effective in Nydorf. We have film and sound editing as well as a mural project that is both of those are workforce readiness programs where youth are getting stipends. I believe that you would if you ask youth, I think the kinds of things that they really are excited about are like animation that has a technology component, that has a self-expression component. But in general, once they understand what the arts can do, they're interested in dance, they're interested in music, they're interested in theater, they're interested in creative writing, all these kinds of things. You know, if given a chance, then they discover how much they're interested in it. And it's difficult for some of those youth to even conceive of what to ask for without having some of that experience. So that's why we like to offer a broad spectrum of different kinds of art forms so that they can become aware of where their particular talents lie and their predilections for what they want to pursue. I think if we could have that kind of a model so that we could be very much more customized in terms of serving youth where they are and what they're asking for, I think that would be a really important step forward.
Thanks, Greg. Go ahead, Chair Canales.
Yes, thank you for that information. And I just want to reiterate, when I was there too, I've been able to see the interaction, the activities going on with the arts programs. I remember one time they were making butterflies, but they were very actively involved. It wasn't something like, oh, I have to do this. They really love the kitchen, the cooking too. And this is feedback I have gotten across the board, every facility. They want to feel productive. They want to see what they're creating. They want to be a part of creating something, right? And so I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you for calling in and joining this meeting. And I just think it's so important to express. They did express, with the changes. I did hear from some of the girls, but this was at that time, like you said, we easily adapt. Commissioner Jackson, the last time I have spoken to some of the girls, they missed the privacy of Dorothy Kirby. They did, some didn't like the dorm setting, but they weren't doing it in an angry, complaining way at all. If anything, they were even uplifting the program and at what phase you get, the different things and explaining everything to me. And then talking about since the move, some programs that they used to have at Dorothy Kirby, they were not provided there. But thank you so much for calling in with the information about the arts, because that is so true. And I've been able to see that when I've visited the facilities.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry that WebEx is doing a weird thing with how these are listed, so I'm going to try to go in order. I think next is Sandra Suarez. I'm going to unmute you, and you're welcome to speak.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Sandra Suarez. I'm the director, founder of Jesse's Place organization and Aftermath. And we serve the juvenile justice in Ventura County. How do we go about trying to apply or implement or talk to someone about? We have 3 programs. One is called One Way, which is accountability, transformation, change. And that one, we teach in California state prisons across the state of California. We also go into camps here in San Dimas and again in Ventura for the juvenile justice. And that when we do vision boards with the youth and with the incarcerated to show them. We also have our second curriculum, which is called Aftermath Healing Roots. And what that one addresses is adverse childhood experiences. And our last one is called Trauma. So we would like to know, we're interested in who do we speak to try and, it's been pretty difficult in some facilities to want to implement or show someone our programs.
Sandra, the Probation Oversight Commission doesn't have a lot of influence in terms of which programs probation chooses to go with, but I'm going to ask Janae to please put my email in the chat. And if you send me an email, I will definitely connect you with the folks at Probation and the Department of Youth Development, which is in the process of taking over programming, so that you can reach out to them. They would be the right ones to connect with. We'll go next to Cassidy Maldonado.
Afternoon.
Hi, Cassidy.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Cassidy Maldonado. I'm an intern with Young Women's Freedom Center. I've been affected by the system since I was 15 years old. I'm here today to express my anger to you one more time about how neglected the Department of Probation been like the staff is always burnt out. The kids program haven't been fixed, no aftercare been provided, and trans youth been brutally discriminated. Nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. You guys keep asking for a bigger budget money, but we haven't seen things change. What's gonna be the excuse this time? We want change. We want you to free the 50 and close the facilities. We want you to let them go and free the 50.
Thanks, Cassidy. I'm so glad you joined today. I appreciate you commenting. We'll go next to Evelyn. Go ahead, Evelyn. Oh, Evelyn, I think maybe you have us turned on two devices because I hear a little bit of feedback.
1 second.
Oh, no, it's good now. It's good. You can start now.
Oh my God.
Evelyn, can you hear?
Good morning. My name is Evelyn Espinal. Or good afternoon. My name is Evelyn Espinal. I'm a fellow at the Young Women's Freedom Center. I'm here today to demand better treatment and safety for girls and gender expansive youth currently detained in facilities. These young girls are facing atrocious challenges such as being given plastic and paper underwear, pronouns not being respected, and having to eat disgusting food on a daily basis. I believe it's important that we prioritize their mental health, education, and rehabilitation and protection while they are in custody. For many girls, being required to wear this type of clothing can feel humiliating and dehumanizing. This is a traumatizing experience. Probation spends up to $1 million to keep a youth locked up in a year, yet these youth can't even be given cotton underwear. We are the alternative. Please consider a rapid release for these girls and gender expansive youth. Care, not cages. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Evelyn. And both of those issues you addressed are discussed specifically in the report, about the underwear issues and the issues about identification and services for youth that the department considers gender expansive. So we're actually going to have a much more robust conversation about that at our June 11th Probation Oversight Commission, specifically on the identification, protection, and services for LGBTQ plus youth. So we welcome people to join that meeting with your concerns and questions. Let's go next to Deanna Pittman. Hi, Deanna. I don't know why, but your little microphone doesn't show up as green, so that's strange. Janae, do you have any idea why that might be? Let's try it again. No, she shows up as muted again.
Okay,
Oh,
can
there
you
we
hear
go.
me now?
There we go. Yes, it worked. Thank
Perfect,
you for your
perfect.
patience.
So my name is Deanna. I'm also here with the Young Women's Freedom Center, and I really just want to thank the commissioners who are deeply committed, keeping their eyes and on the conditions inside Camp Kilpatrick. Um, Me and the other youth that are on this call are directly working with girls and gender expansive youth as they're coming home from this facility. So this report plus the things that they're sharing with us are so alarming. Things that equal what I would consider to be human rights violations and major gender equity issues. So I really like building on what Evelyn shared, like emphasize on the things that gender expansive and trans youth are particularly enduring right now. They've shared that they have been misgendered even after um other people are sharing that no, this is what my gender pronouns are, and probation officers saying no, I'm actually going to address you as this. Um so yeah, their gender and their identities are being dismissed. So I also want to comment on Commissioner Kakani, like on what you said about programming and how the chief said that them being dispositioned at this facility is gonna better them. We're gonna have tailored programming for them, but what we're seeing is the exact opposite, where trans and gender expansive youth are now more than ever disproportionately affected by attacks on their identities, really. Um, and there are supports that exist in the community that will add more value to young people who are growing at their identities at such a tender point in their lives. One thing that one of the um, trans boys who has exited Camp Kilpatrick is working on right now with some support from the Young Women's Freedom Center is an affinity group to kind of undo some of the damage that their identities have faced while inside. So I'm really looking forward to seeing youth who have directly been inside this facility support each other as they're navigating reentry. And lastly, I really want to say that I think that probation should answer to this report, and they should answer to the things that young people are sharing about what they're enduring on the inside. Um, because again, they said one thing and what we're seeing is the exact opposite. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deanna. And I think you'll see that the commissioners expressed a lot of sharing of your thoughts about the concerns, in particular about how young people are being identified. And I'm looking forward, as I said, to this discussion going further next Thursday. Probation did respond to that concern in their official response, which is linked to our report. And they list a number of policies and practices. The policies that are in writing actually do suggest that self-identification and other modes of identification of especially transgender status, but also LGBTQ plus in general, SOGI status, are part of the written policy. And I think what you'll see in this inspection report echoes what you're saying, which is that in practice, what we're hearing from young people and staff at the facility doesn't match up with the policy. That's not unique to this issue, but something that I think the Probation Oversight Commission has seen over the years of these inspections. And so thank you for lifting up the voices of the young people that are inside. Let's go next to Clinton Drummer. Go ahead, Clinton.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I just want to thank you all for all the amazing work that you guys do. Just really, really making sure that our young folks are properly taken care of. So I'm the executive director of Financial Liberation Training Academy, and we are very, very, very passionate about making sure that youth are able to successfully reenter society and that they actually have a chance to build out their life in adulthood through financial awareness. Um, we're passionate about that because we want to make sure that they not just come home, but they stay home. And in adulthood, managing financial obligations is such a difficult thing. And so that's we currently go inside of Los Padrinos, Dorothy Kirby, and we are definitely passionate about making sure that all youth have access to not just financial and employment education, but that they have access to leaders that lead with love. You know, that is the most effective and most important thing that we have witnessed in doing this work. And so we just want to, express our support and also just want to thank you for everything that you guys are doing.
Thank you, Clinton. We'll go next to Jessica Gonzalez. Hi, Jessica. There we go.
So this is Jessica. I'm the Youth Justice Program Manager with CASA LA. I think some of the commissioners raised the concern around pre-dispo and post-disposition girls and gender expansive youth at the same facility. For me, one of the things that I've seen in supporting youth that were at Los Padrinos was the way that their nervous system just calmed once they dispoed and left Los Padrinos. So I think for girls that are spending predisposition time in this facility and then being dispoed and just remaining in the same facility, it won't allow for their nervous systems to just adjust and feel like there's hope coming, right? Feel like there's a transition that's happened and things that they're moving forward. Also, there's little consideration for this setting for any trauma that the children have had prior to coming into this facility, if they're sharing that much of an open space within these dorm settings with each other. I think one of the commissioners mentioned being able to just go into your unit or your room, right, when there's been a long day or you've had conflict with another peer or a staff member, to just be able to kind of separate yourself from the group. This setting doesn't allow for that, which creates bigger conflict and more conflict, which then just reflects in the DORs as conflict rather than something that was triggered by something else. And then also considering the staff that are there for endless hours. You know, I think probation mentions, oh, they get overtime pay for sleeping for 3 hours. I don't think that makes a difference if you're not able to focus on what your role is with these young people. If you're frustrated, if you're tired, if you're having to think about your drive down that hill to go home, you're not focused on how to be supportive and how to be, providing guidance and offering support to the young people that are in your care. So, offering more pay for less attention and them being less supported physically, I don't think is a solution for this type of facility.
Thank you, Jessica. I think you'll see in the narrative of the inspection report that there are some really kind and thoughtful things said by the Girls and Gender Expansive Youth in their interviews about their concerns for staff. A lot of empathy actually expressed for the staff members, some of them who they care just deeply about. It's very obvious from the way they talk about them. Let's go next to Angela Arroyo. Go ahead, Angela.
Oh, you guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Angela Arroyo. I am an intern at the Young Women's Freedom Center. I am here today to ask that we continue to take deeper consideration of the conditions these youth are forced to be housed in. Gender expansive youth at CBK are being stigmatized for their pronouns. Girls and gender expansive youth are complaining about disposable undergarments and unappetizing meals. I understand they might have committed a crime, but nobody deserves to be treated less than human or feel oppressed in a time when we need help the most. Care first, jails never should be our main priority. Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming, Angela. Crystal, welcome. Nice to see your name.
Won't be long. I know I left a lot of questions and different concerns, but I just wanted to highlight what Commissioner Jackson said in regards to having the women or even men having more recreational activities where they could dance or uplift the arts as a way of healing and coping, to be able to express themselves in a positive way and also build peer support. So within their cubicles or within their actual jail facilities, I think that's a great idea, to express themselves in a positive way and actually keep that going consistently so that they can cope, they can heal, and then they have something positive to look forward to daily, right? Building that enrichment and actually physical health. So that's also exercise. That's also important, right? For coping and recovery. So I just really wanted to highlight that activity. And then, just like the other agencies said, I'm very eager to find out how can other community organizations in the community send proposals, send activities requests to help build the recommendations and effectiveness to ensure that we're not just recycling the same programs within the facilities, but we're also allowing new strategies and new programs to uplift and strengthen the facilities to keep it going. And the door's there for effective programming, not what's not working. So not saying one thing and doing another, but actually saying what we mean and doing what we say. So we have the funding, let's put it in the places it needs, which is enrichment, housing, stability, and safety. That's key, right? So how do we make that work for the best of the children and the facility? Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. And, thankfully, arts isn't only for people who are really good at arts, because I love arts. It's very helpful to me. Although I will say there are some young people, not just at this facility, but at all of the facilities I've seen, who are objectively extraordinarily talented in a way that could potentially lead to jobs. And passions in their future. So thank you for uplifting that. I don't see any other hands raised. Anybody else want to contribute? That was, yes, please, Commissioner Jackson.
I just wanted to sort of add that my hope when we do these inspections is that, and I would maybe speak for the commission, is to offer feedback to the department about improvements that they can make. This is not intended to be purely critical, but like our hope is that they are doing ongoing assessments of plans that they've made and being able to modify the plans to make sure that the young people's needs are met. And so as much as they're coming back with responses, you would think that they would be coming back with propositions for corrective actions in a much more constructive and kind of neutral way, instead of a way that feels like it's a counterattack as if we're attacking them in the first place. Our job is to report information. We invite them to offer feedback. I believe we gave them more than one opportunity to do that, and to use those opportunities to defend themselves rather than defend the plan to support the youth is just really disappointing. So I just wanted to add that.
I don't see any other hands. You all don't have to raise your hands. You're in charge here. Go ahead, Commissioner Ship.
No, I mean, I just kind of want to build on what Commissioner Jackson said. Pretty much just, if they do feel like these inspections are impartial or just unfair, or we are attacking them, then I offer them to come and be in facility with us, the leadership team, to come and watch us do these inspections. I mean, we do them frequently every year, and we are there other times throughout the year. And I offer the chief and the rest of the leadership team to come by when we come by and see these inspections and speak to the people we speak to, and learn from their own staff and these young people as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy about all the public comments today at this town hall. Thank you all for joining us in the middle of the workday. And I know you have lots of other things going on, and your appreciation of how important this issue is really shines through. This webinar town hall will be available in a recording. And as Sarah said, we will have this on the agenda, talking specifically about the identification and protection of LGBTQ plus youth and the Care with Pride motion on June 11th at our next in-person meeting. That's 9 a.m. at St. Anne's. And also the commission will have a chance to vote on the official inspection report at that meeting. So you'll be able to make further comments if you wish at that meeting, and that will be the official Brown Act vote around this. I want to just express again my thanks to the commissioners. I think you all know, but they do this as volunteers. They all have other jobs, and it's really exceptional the way that they're able to contribute a lens that allows the folks from the outside who care so deeply about the young people inside to really see what it's like in the facility from the perspective of the young people and staff, and to be able to present recommendations that could improve not just the facilities, but the overall justice system, reducing the reliance on detention. So thank you. Dr. Gongora is an exceptional person, and her leadership on this, which is done in collaboration with our other staff member, Jennifer Ochoa Garcia, who we don't see her face today, but who is very responsible for the organization and drafting of all these notes, and harassing the commissioners to get their notes in a very kind way. So thank you to the staff of the POC and the commissioners and all of the folks who were involved in writing this inspection. Sarah, do you have any closing remarks you wanted to make before we say goodbye?
Just a big thank you to everybody. We couldn't do it without y'all.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Okay. Thanks all for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.